So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just try to tap on the door with the hammer, see if we get it to break. So let's go ahead and do that. So there it is. We're like rubbing up against the door here. Nothing's going, it's not breaking. We're going to go ahead and throw it with a hammer. So let's try to throw it. And you can see it hits the door pretty hard, but it doesn't break it because, again, we told it that we have to be interacting with the hammer to break it. So unless the player is holding the hammer, he can't break the door. He can't just throw it. Let's try some light taps here. I don't know how sensitive it's going to be here. So let's try some light taps. See if we can get it to break with these light taps. Doesn't look like we're breaking it with these light taps. Now let's give it a hit. Let's go ahead and give it a good swing and see if we can break the door. So go ahead and just swing it around. Boom, and the door breaks right open. Hey guys, it's TechnoFreak here, and welcome to episode 33 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're going to be talking about puzzles. We're going to be talking about, this is going to be the first episode about puzzles. I feel like this should probably be an ongoing series that goes on with the tutorial series. We'll try to add more complex puzzles and cool puzzles that you guys recommend and stuff like that. The thing with puzzles is it's a very general topic. You can really make any kinds of puzzles you want. You just kind of have to think about what you want to do and try to implement it. Everything we're going to talk about, at least the basics parts of what we're going to talk about today are things that we've already covered in the past before in the previous episodes that you can kind of put together. Then we'll be doing a little bit more advanced version of what we did, of what we implement, just to give it more detail and add like a little bit of extra cool factor to what we're doing today. So what we're going to be doing today is a puzzle, and it's going to be a very general, very basic kind of puzzle. All I'm thinking is there's a door, you need to get inside, right? So you got to look for a way to open the door, and you find a sledgehammer and you try to swing it at the door, and it breaks the door. So that's pretty much all I'm doing. So very basic thing, I find the sledgehammer, let me hit it against the door, and it'll break open the door. So that's what I'm thinking. We have a basement area down here. I'm going to go ahead and click down here, and I'm going to go ahead and focus down on it. We have these two rooms. We have like this medical room that we made, and we have like this storage room. So what I'm thinking is in terms of like story, the player can access this storage room, and there'll be like a sledgehammer in here that he can grab, and he can bring the sledgehammer over to this door to bash it open. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on entity here for this door, and we're going to make sure this one is locked. So we want him to come in here to look for something, ideally. What it is, I don't really know yet, but he's going to come in here. It's going to be locked. I'm going to make sure that disable breakable is enabled, because we want the sledgehammer to be able to break down the door. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, this one, I got to make sure it's not locked. It's not locked. With that, let's also check and see if these doors got a name. This one's have a name. Let's call this one med door, because it's like the medical door. So we'll call it med door. This one, we don't need to do anything with this door. This will just be unlocked, so we're not going to give it a name. So now let's go ahead and put a sledgehammer in this room. We're going to go ahead and go into entities here, and we're going to look for sledgehammer. So workshop sledgehammer right here. So we're going to put it right here, and we'll go ahead and just kind of orient it however we want. Let's turn on grid snapping first and have it turn with grid snapping. And I'm going to kind of I think I'm just going to lean it up against this table. And let's get the rotation here and kind of lean it backwards here. And I'll probably need to turn off grid snapping to get more precise. Hurry, just like that, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, so that looks good. So sledgehammer is right there. We'll go ahead and give it a name. Let's call it hammer _1, just to give it a very general name. I believe that's all we're gonna do here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and put a trigger area on this door over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of put a trigger area in front of this door here, and the reason we do that is because we're gonna make that trigger area detect when a hammer has entered its area, and then when it does, it will pretty much break the door down. Specifically, we'll check for this hammer. We don't have any other like sledgehammers in the map anyways, but we'll specifically check for this sledgehammer, and if that sledgehammer touches that trigger area, which will be right up against this door, then we'll go ahead and break it. So let's go ahead and go to our areas here. It should be the second one right here, and it should be trigger area, so we'll go ahead and draw one out. I want to turn on grid snapping here just to get more fine control over this. And let's go, I accidentally clicked here, so let's undo that. Let's do something like this, and we don't want it to be too far out so it doesn't like accidentally trigger when we don't want it to. We probably should have raised that a little bit. Let's go ahead and just grab it and stretch it out here. Might just want to it's not stretching, so let's just replace it here to get the exact size that we're looking for. So we'll go ahead and go back to our areas here, and we'll go ahead and redraw it here, and we'll bring it all the way to the top this time. And there it is. We don't really care so much if they hit up there. We really want the center of the door where the real meat of the door is. And we'll call this hammer. Let's call it hammer break area. Hammer break area. That's fine. Just so that we know what kind of area it symbolizes. Go ahead and now we're going to go ahead and do the collide callback, so that when the sledgehammer touches this door, we can execute some code. So for that, we're going to go ahead and go under collide callback. So when this trigger area collides with the hammer, we want to execute something. So so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this a little differently than we've done it in the past, just because I want to show you guys, show you guys a little bit more of how to do different things here. Normally, we'd put like exactly what we want the thing to interact with. So if it's a player, we type in player. If it's hammer, you could type in hammer 1. But we're actually gonna do something different here. We're gonna put star, and that's a wild card. We talked about this, I believe, in episode 17, just putting 1 star here, what this does, it will run our script, our function, no matter what object steps in this area. So even if the player steps in this area, it will execute this whatever script is in our script file. So we're gonna go ahead and do this, and I'll show you guys why we're gonna do it like that in a minute. But pretty much we'll check for what the item is in our script instead. And the function here, we're gonna go ahead and just do the convention here. We're gonna do on collide underscore. Normally you do like on collide, and if it's a player, you do on collide like player, and then the area that you're gonna be colliding with. That's the convention. Of course, you can name it whatever you want. I'm gonna name mine's on collide underscore hammer break area. So I pretty much did on collide, so I copied this first part here, the on collide area, and then pretty much took the name that's up here, hammer break area, and put it down here. So that's pretty much that. We're gonna hit save here. And so that's pretty much everything we need to do in our level. We got our hammering named hammer 1. We got our door named. We got our script here. And we have it colliding with everything and executing this function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit copy here to copy this function. And if we go to our CodeLight application, where we're doing our scripting, we can go ahead and paste it in. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it in somewhere. I'm probably just going to scroll to the bottom of my functions here. We obviously got a lot. It's been working on a lot. We're going to put it down here, and we're going to go ahead and just kind of clean this up a little bit. I'm going to tab out some of these things here. I'm actually going to bring this curly brace up here, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we'll go ahead and hit enter here, and now we're going to work in here. So let's go ahead and zoom you guys in here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to first check what the all state is, and the all state is pretty much what is the condition that the collision occurs. So So when the player, like for example, when an object enters the trigger area, the all state is 1. When it leaves the area, it is going to be like, when it leaves the area, you can check for that too, and that's going to be 0. So we're going to do all state equals 1. So if all state is equal to 1, then that means something entered the area. If you wanted to check if it left the area, you could do like 0, but we're gonna do 1. We only interested when something enters the area. So as soon as the sledgehammer makes contact with the trigger area, we want to do something, and we're gonna return true at the end here. True pretty much indicates that if this function here that we're running in our script, if this returns true, that means that we're gonna we're not gonna remove the script, the trigger area. We're gonna keep running the trigger area every time, and we will we will return false when we meet the condition that we want. But that's gonna be once we detect the hammer and everything. So what we're gonna do now in here is we're gonna go if. We're gonna put our parentheses, curly brace, and what we're gonna do is in this curly brace, we're gonna put as child. So one of the conditions that this function passes in is as child, and the child is the object that enters the trigger area. We talked about this in episode 5 when we first started talking about scripts. So the as child, that's the object that enters the trigger area. So we're gonna say if the child object, so the item that entered the trigger area, equals, and this is where we're gonna check to see if it's the hammer. So if it is hammer_1, so that's the name that we gave our hammer. If the child name is hammer_1, then we're gonna execute whatever is inside of this if statement here that we put. So now what we're gonna do, very simple now. This is gonna, of course, this is gonna be the simple implementation. We're gonna use prop_set health, and we're gonna put the prop name to be the name of the door. So this was, I believe, med door. I think we didn't put 1. It was med door. We'll double check in a second. But med door, and then we'll do comma space, and then the health of the door. So we want the health to be 0. So we're gonna put 0.0f. You could also do 0.f. This also works. This is usually how the developers like to write it, just because it's less characters. But pretty much this is just means 0. We're gonna put 0. We'll leave it like that. We're gonna set the health of med door to 0, and if we double check in our level editor, yes, it is med door. So med_door. And one other thing, you guys should have this if you've been following my tutorial, but if you haven't, what we're gonna do is go up here, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure that you have this line put in your top over here. It's pound include helpers/helper props.hps. So this has the helper functions for props. So if you don't have that in your script file, you're gonna get an error saying that there is no function with these values. So you want to make sure you have that up there. And then we're also going to do one other thing. What we're going to do is we're going to delete the hammer pretty much as soon as we break the door. So we're going to do entity_destroy, and then we'll go ahead and put in the name of the hammer here. So we'll say hammer_1, and we'll close that out with our semicolon at the end. So this is pretty much the basic implementation. Last thing we want to do is do return false. This pretty much returning false here pretty much means that we did what we wanted. We broke the door. We deleted the hammer. Go ahead and return false. There's no more need for this script, this function to run anymore. So we return false, and we say that's it. We don't need you to run no more. In the event that this fails, that if the child is not a hammer and it's not all state 1, in that case we'll return true. So then we'll execute the whole function again. But in our case, once we do check that if it does match that the hammer entered the area here, then we will go ahead and remove this function from running again. And again, just to run through it one last time, if the hammer enters the area, if an item enters the area, and that item as child is hammer 1, we're going to set the door's health to 0, so it's going to break. and then we're going to just go ahead and destroy the hammer, and then we're going to return false to tell the game to not run this code anymore. It's did its purpose. So with that, we can pretty much go ahead and run our game and test it out. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the base, again, this is the basic implementation of this. So let's go ahead and execute our game and check it out. Actually, guys, before we started up, I noticed that we have we kind of like created two areas here when I was creating this. We have like one area here, and then like another area up here. So I kind of named the wrong one right here. So I kind of named this area right here instead of naming the area up here. So I'm just gonna correct that. Let's go ahead and just kind of copy this stuff over. So we're just gonna go ahead and click on this area here. Let me turn it this way, probably easier. So just want to make sure we get the right thing here. Yeah, that's right. It's gonna complain about the same name. So let's change that name. But yeah, just noticed that I somehow accidentally ended up duplicating the script area here. So make sure you name the right script area. It shouldn't be a problem for you guys, but just make sure you set yours to be correct. So then with that, we'll delete this area, and that's pretty much it. We'll save that here. So we actually named the correct area now. I had some random area down there. I must have duplicated it by accident and not realized. So with that, let's go ahead and start up a game and check it out. All right, so here we are in our level. So we're gonna go ahead and head straight down the stairs and to check out our door and everything. So I do have a script area right here that spawns a ghoul. So I'm gonna go ahead and avoid it by kind of jumping around here and coming around this corner. So that's why I'm making that jump there. And I'm gonna go down here, and this door should be open, and it is. And this other one should be locked, so let's just kind of double check that. As you can see, I grabbed it and I'm shaking my mouse and it's not doing anything. We're gonna go ahead and go back here. Let's go ahead and grab that sledgehammer now. So here it is. We're gonna go ahead and grab it here, and we're gonna go ahead and bring it over to the door here. And I think you can rotate it with like T or like middle mouse or something. But we're gonna go ahead and let's just go ahead and grab it. It's whatever. And then we're gonna go ahead and just kind of swing it at the door. And as soon as this makes contact with that area, the door should just break. So there it is, and we broke the door, and the door broke in. So pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. Again, it's the basic implementation that we're doing today. So I noticed that we didn't really have to put much force, and technically if we throw the hammer at the door, then it would also break. So a very basic implementation of it, enough for sure for a puzzle, but we're gonna kind of make this a little better here, and we're gonna do some pretty cool stuff here. So what I'm thinking is, what I want to do is I want to check to make sure that player is swinging the hammer hard enough at the door, throwing it hard enough at the door, swinging the hammer hard enough at the door, not just hitting the door hard enough, but also checking to see if the player is actually holding the hammer and he's not just throwing it at the door. We don't want him to just throw it at the door and the door breaks. We want him to actually grab it and swing the hammer at the door, and if he swings it hard enough, then the door should break. That's what I'm looking to do here. And so that we're going to go ahead and implement that a little bit more advanced, but very fun. And if you guys enjoy this kind of stuff, you guys are really going to like this. So let's go back into our script. If all you wanted to know was the basic implementation, that's it. This is done. You can go ahead and put it in your custom story if that's what you want. But I encourage you guys, some really cool stuff we're going to do here. So stay tuned for the rest of the episode here. So let's go ahead and go back to our script now, and let's go ahead and check it out. All right, guys, here we are back in our script here. So, like I said, we're gonna take this the next step, make it a much cooler kind of effect here. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make sure that when the player swings the hammer at the door, the player is actually holding the hammer. He's not just throwing it. So we don't want the door to just break if you throw it. And also, we want to go ahead and make sure he's swinging the hammer hard enough when he does, to make sure that the door breaks. We don't want him to just tap the door and the door breaks. So that's kind of what would happen with this implementation. If you grab the hammer and just put it up against the door, it's just going to break, which is fine for a very basic puzzle. And if that's what you want to implement, that's fine. But we're going to take it up to the next step. and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do something even cooler than that. So what we're gonna do first, let's go ahead and make it so that the player has to be holding the item to be able to actually break down the door. So very easy way to do that. What we're gonna do is here, when we check if the item that interacted is a hammer, we're gonna put one additional requirement here. So we're gonna do 2 ampersands here, ampersand, and what this does is it pretty much means and. It's an and operation. So we're saying if the child is the hammer 1 and player underscore is interacting, so the player is interacting with an object. In this case, of course, if we detect that it is a hammer and he is interacting with something, it can only pretty much be the hammer. So if the player is interacting with the hammer and it is a hammer, then we're gonna go ahead and execute this stuff. So this would pretty much make it so that the player has to be holding the hammer and he can't just throw it. So that's good. Now to getting the checking the velocity is a little bit more advanced, but it's actually pretty cool and pretty straightforward. And I'm going to show you guys pretty much how to do it. So what we're first going to do is we're gonna create a variable. And we're gonna say I lux entity at. We'll put the at symbol here. We're gonna say PENT, and I'll cover what this means in a second. Equals map underscore get entity, and then the name will be the name of our hammer. So we'll say hammer 1, and we're gonna go ahead and put a semicolon here. And what this pretty much does is we're creating a variable called pEntity. You could call this technically whatever you want, but we're calling this pEntity, and it is of object type iLux entity. This is just the type of object it is. This doesn't matter so too much here, but that's what this is going to return here. So we're saying map underscore get entity. So we're getting the actual entity object that is the hammer 1. So it checks the name hammer 1. It finds the entity inner level, and it gets that entity object, and that's what this is representing here. This is the entity object, and we're saving that entity object to a variable that we named pEntity, P-E-N-T. So now that we got that entity variable, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the velocity of the hammer at the moment it enters this trigger area. So we're gonna say C vector 3f hammer velocity. So I'll explain all of this, of course. Hammer velocity, this is the name that we're naming our variable, just like above, and we're going to say equals pEnt dot get main body. And again, I'll cover all of this in a second. We'll walk through the whole thing, and we're going to say get linear velocity, and then we'll go ahead and close this out with a semicolon. All right, so now let's go ahead and cover what this whole line means here. So we are pretty much declaring we are creating a variable here called hammer velocity, and we're saying that this hammer velocity variable is going to be of type C vector 3f, and then we're calling pEnt. So this variable here, we're calling this variable, and we're calling a function that variable has called get main body. And get main body is getting the physics body of the entity. So we do pEnt dot, and we do like get main body. This returns right here iPhysics body. So this returns the physics body of the entity. So the way things work with physics in the game, there's like a physics body attached to the entity, which kind of tells us what kind of forces are applied on the entity. So we're getting that physics body so that we can check the velocity, and that's why we call get linear velocity here. So on that physics body, so we do pEnt dot get main body. So now when we call this, we're getting the physics body, and then we hit dot, and now we can call functions that are inside of the physics body object. So in this case, we really care about get linear velocity, but of course there's other functions you could use here if you need them. So we're getting the velocity, and this returns a C vector 3F, and that's why, and I'll write it out again just so you guys can see that. I messed that up. PENT dot get main body, and then get linear velocity, and you can see right here we're returning a C vector 3F, and that's why we're putting a variable here with that object type, because this returns that kind of variable. So now that we have all of that, now we know. Now we have obtained the velocity being applied to that hammer. So we know what the velocity coordinates of that hammer are. We know what its x, y, and z force variables are. And now we can kind of use that info to determine what we want. So what we're gonna do here, before we finish this implementation, we're actually gonna test it and just kind of check out what the outputs look like in the game. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna print out those velocities. We're gonna print out all the x, y, and z velocity for this object. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in CLux, and we're going to print it as a debug message, just like we always do with a lot of things here. We're going to do CLux add debug message, and the text we're going to show, what we're going to do is first call cstring. Cstring is the built-in functions in the game engine that lets you print out a string. So it lets you convert like a number to a string. So this is important because you can't just print a number. You need to specify that it's a string. So the way we do that, we say cstring toString here, and then we go ahead and put in the number we want to print here. So we want to print hammer velocity dot, and then this is the C vector 3F, and these are all the variables inside of C vector 3F and all the functions. And as you can see, there's an X, a Y, and the Z. So we're gonna go ahead and print every single coordinate here. So we'll do this, and what I'll do to make this easier, I'll just go ahead and copy this because it's pretty much all gonna be the same, except for one little thing. So we got the X, we got the Y, and we got the Z. And now when we swing this hammer at the door, we're gonna get these three values right here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this to true here, only temporarily. We're not gonna do this permanently. This is just so that we can keep checking the velocity constantly, and it won't remove this function. So let's go ahead and start up our game, and let's check it out. Let's see what kind of numbers we get. Before we launch it, let's also make sure that we're not destroying the hammer here. So we'll go ahead and put 2 slashes here just to comment that out. We want to make sure that we're not destroying the hammer, that way we can keep checking the velocity. So let's go ahead and start up a game now. All right, so here we are. I took us down to the bottom level already. So let's go ahead and grab our hammer, and we're gonna go ahead and swing it at the door now, and we're gonna look at the bottom left. So let's go ahead and swing it. And as you can see, we have 3 values here. That's our X, our Y, and our Z value. So that's the direction of the force that we're applying. So let's go ahead and try it again. And as you can see, we swung our hand again, and we have an X, a Y, and a Z there. And you see 4, 1, 4, 1, 7. And we keep swinging. We can get different numbers here. We can also like throw this a little harder here. Oh, that's right. It doesn't interact because we want to make it so it's only when you interact. So we walk slowly here. Let's see if we get smaller numbers. Yeah, you see we get like numbers like 1 or less. You can see that. And then we swing with force, we get larger numbers. I'm looking to see about how much force. I'm not sure we didn't check the direction, so I'm not sure what direction we're swinging this in. It's gonna have to be the X or the Z, which is gonna be the first number or the last number here. I think it is. And let's see, swing it a little harder. Okay, so I think it is. Okay, so it looks like it's the X. That's being affected here. So I think based on those numbers, I think probably like a number like 4 is going to be good enough to represent like a swing. That's like a good light swing there. You see that? So that gets about 4. You see like 4.94. So a hard swing is like a much higher. They got like a 7 there. Slowed down there, 5, but I think 4 is going to be good. You could do 5 too, but we don't want to make it too hard for the player to figure out. So let's go ahead and go back, and let's make it so that a velocity of 4 in that direction is what triggers the break of the door. So let's go ahead and go back. All right, so here we are. We're in our level editor just because I want to check the direction of the move of the direction that we're hitting this thing at. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some random object here, and we're just gonna keep an eye on this number here. So okay, so it looks like it's the Z direction that we put force in, and it looks like it's towards the negative Z direction. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna check to see when the negative Z force is past 4. Based on the numbers we were getting, it seems like that about 4 seemed like the good area to put the force. But of course you can do whatever you want. But yeah, but it looks like this is the negative Z direction. So we'll check for negative Z force. So let's go ahead and go to our code light application then, and we're gonna go ahead and undo this here. So we're going ahead and do that. And we'll go ahead and set this back to false. We were just testing, so we're going to change those back to what they were before. And now what we're going to do is we'll leave these commented out just so you guys can see it here, but we don't really have any use for them right now anymore. So now what we're gonna do, let's zoom you guys in first. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna check the velocity. So the way we do that is we're gonna say if, and we'll go ahead and do the whole statement here. We're gonna say if hammer velocity, so that's this value right here, and we're checking specifically the Z direction. So we're gonna do dot Z. So if hammer velocity in the Z direction, and this is and again we're checking to see if it's in the negative Z direction. So we're going to say if hammer velocity dot Z is less than negative 4.0 F. So remember, we're swinging this hammer swinging in the negative Z direction. So when he swings it in the negative Z direction with a force of -4 or higher, we want to go ahead and trigger this break. If we were going in the positive Z direction, then you would check 4.0 instead of -4.0, and then you would do greater than. So like if you were in the positive Z direction, the door was placed in a position where it'd be in the positive Z direction. This would be something like this: if hammer velocity dot Z is greater than 4.0 F. But we're gonna undo this. And we're leaving it like this because we're swinging in the negative Z direction. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy these values here and put them inside of our if statement right here. So we only want to destroy the door. We want to copy this false here as well. We only want to destroy the door and the hammer if we meet this minimum velocity requirement. So that's pretty much it. So we check to see if the velocity in the Z direction is higher than our threshold. Our threshold is -4. That's what we have it set to. You can mess around with this however you want, change the numbers. But when we pass a Z force of -4 or higher, and then we're going to go ahead and destroy the door, destroy the hammer, and we're going to go ahead and return false to make sure that this doesn't run anymore, because we completed what we wanted, which was opening this door, which was breaking down this door. So we'll go ahead and save it here, and we'll go ahead and run our game now, and we're going to go ahead and check it out. Alright, so here we are. I brought us back down here again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just try to tap on the door with the hammer, see if we get it to break. So let's go ahead and do that. So there it is. We're like rubbing up against the door here. Nothing's going, it's not breaking. We're going to go ahead and throw the hammer. So let's try to throw it. And you can see it hits the door pretty hard, but it doesn't break it because, again, we told it that we have to be interacting with the hammer to break it. So unless the player is holding the hammer, he can't break the door. He can't just throw it. Let's try some light taps here. I don't know how sensitive it's going to be here, so let's try some light taps. See if we can get it to break with these light taps. Doesn't look like we're breaking it with these light taps. Now let's give it a hit. Let's go ahead and give it a good swing and see if we can break the door. So go ahead and just swing it around. Boom, and the door breaks right open, and the hammer gets destroyed right over as well, so it disappears right away. and it just leads to the remains of our door. So there it is. That's pretty much the whole thing. Really cool, really fun thing to mess around with. I know that the second part was a little bit more advanced, but I want to start getting into a few more advanced things. A lot of this episode was kind of stitching together things that we did in previous episodes, things like the collide area, and then just kind of messing around with them, using them a little bit differently and stuff. So again, this is just a basic puzzle. The first half of it was just very basic, just break down the door, that's it, nothing crazy. This one was getting more detail into it, making sure that the player's swinging it hard enough, that he's actually holding the hammer, not just throwing it. Not completely necessary to check for those things, but still a really good touch and adds a little bit more realism to the game when the player is playing it. So really good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed that. In the comment, leave ideas for puzzle. I have other people that have messaged me about different puzzle ideas that they want to see in the game. Name specific ones or things that you might want to see. I know somebody mentioned something about like breaking down a wall, and like having a wall breakdown or something like that inside of a custom store. Inside of their custom store, they wanted to implement something like that. So maybe we'll do something like that. We'll have like a breakable wall or something that breaks. That could be good for another puzzle video. For now, the next few episodes we'll probably talk about some other topics, but we're going to keep coming back to puzzles regularly and just kind of trying out some new different puzzles, implementing them in the game and seeing what other things we can do. But again, a lot of puzzles is just pretty much implementing what we've learned in the past and just kind of stitching things together, looking for the functions that you need. All the functions used in today's episode will be in the description, in a Pastebin link in the description. So go ahead and go down there, go ahead and check it out, get those functions and paste them yourself. And with that, guys, that's going to wrap up the video here. I hope you guys all have a good day. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Leave a like on the video before you leave. And again, comment letting me know what kind of puzzles you want to see in the future parts of the puzzle series here. So have a good one, guys. Bye.